Christino. All right. Well, first of all, being here on the other side of the veil, the other side of the curtain, so to speak, really makes me appreciate how much goes into creating this production every week. So why don't we give it up one more time just for the band and for Mike and Adonia and for Mark in the back. I'm grateful for this opportunity to share with you guys. I was thinking, I've had about 2 months to think about this, so I've had time. But I was thinking about what I wanted to, what I could offer from my life that would maybe be helpful for you guys. Yeah, so I was thinking about what I could offer from my life. I don't come up here and talk very much. I think I've given sermon twice before over my entire life. But what I wanted to talk with you guys, actually what I asked Mike if I could, what I asked Mike about whether I could talk about was this, suffering. I found this nice font that really illustrates the what it means to suffer. I added this stock picture too. This guy, he really looks like he's suffering. Thank you, stock pictures. Maybe this guy, maybe he's got taxes due tomorrow. Add a little bit to the suffering, Maybe he's Canadian. Is that? Yeah, well, maybe not. And then I figured I'd throw in a little fire too, just to illustrate the point. But actually, when I asked Mike about this, whether I could talk about suffering, he looked a little bit nervous. So let's X out the suffering. We'll dial it down a little bit. And instead, I'd like to start here. So this is, believe it or not, the very first sentence of a book called The Divine Principle. And the Divine Principle is, I suppose, sort of the original holy text of our church. It's one of the holy books of our church. And so it starts like this. Everyone is struggling to attain happiness and avoid misfortune. Yeah. And I read this book when I was younger, and this sentence, it's a good one. It stands out, And so it's one of the parts of the Divine Principle that I've sort of carried with me in my life. And I'm gonna approach this topic in a little bit of a different direction from the Divine Principle, just based on my own experience. And instead of suffering, I'm going to call today's talk adversity, because it's something that we all kind of have to deal with in our life. Nobody escapes it. And so if you Google the definition of adversity, you get these two words here, difficulties and misfortune. But more so than adversity, what I really want to talk about is this little asterisk. I don't know if you can make it out at the end of adversity. But what does that asterisk say? It says, what does adversity have to do with my happiness? I think that's a good question. I think that's a good place to start. All right. So before I dive right into kind of how I can kind of share with you guys about this from my own life, just wanted to share a little bit about me. So this is me and my mom. Which one is me? I'm the big kid. Hard to tell. It was a long time ago. And my oldest sister is there in my mom's lap. I was born in Scotland. I was actually born into this church, the Unification Church, 40 years ago. long time ago. And but it was a nice environment to be born into. So I grew up in a big family. There were 6 of us, 6 kids, and so this is a picture of my family now. There's almost all of my siblings are in this picture. We've got our spouses, and we've all got our kids, and so it's a big family. I had the fortune of getting married last year, remarried. This is Sungmi, and this is this is evidence in my attempts to make a ski sister out of her, which I think is the female version of a ski bro. So there we go. These are my kids, Lily, Noah, and Jacob up front, and my parents-in-law, Randy and Margaret. We were attending a New Year's service at a church called New Life in Colorado Springs, and New Life is this huge church, and it's for me it's like it's a reminder of what we want to become here one day. At least that's where Pastor Mike wants to take us. All right, what else? All right. And then there's this. This is like, I have this sort of habit of challenging people, and so people that hang out with me too much often find themselves in these awkward, challenging situations. So there we go. That's Sumri and Noah. All right. And then I wanted to kind of really get to the meat of the issue, and that's talking about adversity in my own life. And so, let's see. And really where I wanted to go there was just talk about divorce. It's something that happened to me 5 years ago now. And I'm going to do my best, but it's really hard to kind of get to how catastrophic this was in my life. But I'll put it like this: it's the story of how I lost everything. So I created this list for you. I don't know if it makes it easy for you to relate, but here we go. So I lost my mental health. I lost my job. I lost my house, my home. I lost my wife. I mean, obviously, it goes without saying. And I lost my kids. And and for me, this was essentially losing everything that I cared about in my life. And I really mean that. I didn't have much left after divorce. And, it was sort of this experience where really the world fell out from underneath me, Yeah, it's really hard to describe. Very intense, very difficult situation. And I guess I would summarize it as I lost my happiness, and I found myself left in this place where the truth is that I became really angry, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this at church, but the truth is I became angry at God, really, really angry at God, because honestly, I'd tried my best in life, and I tried to live a good life up until that point. And divorce was never in the cards for me, ever, It was none of my plans. And so when I was hit with it, I was so angry, and I was angry at God. I honestly, I said to God, how could you let this happen to me? Really, have I not tried my best? Have I not tried hard enough? And I think that's the truth of the matter, is I was angry at God. I think these days, for anyone that's been on the internet, that is a familiar sentiment. And so this is something that essentially is a sentiment you often read on the internet. I refuse to believe in a God that allows so much evil and suffering in this world. Has anyone ever heard sentiment along those lines? I'm sure, yeah. I refuse to believe in a God that allows so much evil and suffering in this world. Signed to the internet. There we go. All right. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, really. You guys all come to church every Sunday, you guys have mostly got things figured out, But I would like to take a moment here for you all to reflect about the adversity that you've been through in your own lives. Right? I'm sure I'm not alone here. And in fact, I would go as far as to say that the amount of hardship and adversity experienced collectively in this room is staggering. Really, it is. I know that there are people in this room that have dealt with addiction. I know that there are other people in this room that have been afflicted by divorce. I know that there are people here that have lost a loved one. And who maybe live alone now. I know that there are people in this room who have been through abuse, all kinds of abuse, in their marriage, in other ways in their lives. I heard a story the other day in this community of someone that went through marriage visa fraud. They put their trust in someone else and they abused them. I know there are so many people in this room that had a dream to change the world, and that lived seeing that dream slowly fall through their fingers like sand. I know that reality exists here. I know that there are people here who have children who rejected who they are, went a different way in life, and they've had to live with that. I don't think that's easy. And I also know that there are members of this community that left their homelands to come here to the U.S. as missionaries in the earlier days of our church, And they left behind friends, they left behind families. So I think there's a lot of adversity experienced here in this community. So I've prepared just a little segment of a podcast. It's called Hidden Brain on NPR. I don't condone everything that NPR plays, but this in particular is pretty good. It's from the Happiness 2.0 series, mini-series, and they talk about kind of happiness. But in this particular episode, they talk about adversity. So I'll just play that for you a little bit here.
How do you cope with unhappiness and distress? It's a question humans have wrestled with for thousands of years. it's a foundational issue for many of the world's religions. In recent years, researchers have run experiments to see what works and what doesn't work when it comes to dealing with distress. Perhaps you know firsthand what it's like to look away from pain, to find distractions, laughter, entertainment, anything really, so long as you don't have to acknowledge the elephant-sized hurt in the middle of your heart.
Yeah, that's it. So he talked about adversity being this age-old theme that we've grappled with forever, you know. And it's a theme that we grapple with in religion too, like he said. But he also talked about how many of us just take this adversity in our life and try to hide it. We try to put this giant-sized rug over it, you know, just stuff it in a closet somewhere, try and get rid of it and pretend it's not there, you know. And ultimately, he goes on to talk about that in this episode. But one of the points he makes is that the people that get furthest in their life don't behave like that. They don't take all their adversity and hide it under a rug or stuff it in a closet. The people that get furthest in life are the people that are able to deal with their adversity, that are able to overcome it and handle it. All right, and here's a little passage I have prepared for you from the book of John. I have said these things to you that you may have peace. And this is Jesus talking to his disciples. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart. I have overcome the world. And so this is Jesus. He's giving a farewell discourse to his disciples. It's the night before the crucifixion. And he's not asking them to have pity on himself. He's consoling them for the adversity, for the tribulation that he knows will be coming up for them. This is the night before his crucifixion. Think about that. Jesus, he's not exactly someone that had an easy life himself, you know. He was sort of born as a bastard child. You know, his father Joseph wanted to leave Mary, you know, when he found out that Mary was pregnant. He wanted to leave. He only stayed because an angel commanded him to, more or less, you know. And so, you know, Jesus is a person that had a difficult life. And yet, in the eve before his death, you know, he found the space in his heart to comfort his disciples. You know, so talk about a person that was able to transcend diversity, right? Let's see. Oh, the button clicker's not working. I'm going to point over there.
Just facing adversity.
That's right. We've got to transcend this together. I was getting so comfortable just being able to press next. All right, here we go. So I have this. Oh, there we go. It's working now, Mark. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, so I have this little hobby that I developed during the dark years of my life after divorce. And it is photography, right? So here we've got a simple picture. It's just a flower in the grass. But this picture is special to me because this is the first flower I found this year, actually. And I'm sort of cheating because it was way down south on the border with New Mexico, but still, it counts. You know, what makes a flower like this special is you know, it's the fact that you've been through this long winter and there are no flowers. And so you find this first simple flower, you know, a little daisy in the grass, a little beat up, but it's special, you know. And it was special to me. I took a moment to get a picture of it. And in fact, I've made a habit of taking pictures of flowers. I think it's something I've always enjoyed. These ones were actually at Camp Journey last year. Poppies in someone's yard. We've got these lupin flowers here. Somi's missing them entirely because she's too busy taking pictures of the horses. But more so than flowers, I think what I really enjoy taking pictures of is the light. And it sort of became this obsession for me, right? As I was going through dealing with my divorce, before I'd found the way out of it, I had this obsession of capturing the light in photos. And one of the things I realized was that you don't necessarily notice the light unless you're standing in the dark, right? When we're outside and it's flooded and there's light everywhere, nobody stops to notice the light, right? But when you're in the shade, you notice it. And so this is, it's a little dark, but it's, when the sunlight streams through the streets of New York in the evening, you start to notice the lights. And then this is a picture of the sun setting in Noi and just bathing us, myself and my kids and my brother in the light. And so the point that I want to share with you from what I learned there, is that sometimes when you stand in that place of difficulty in your life, it puts you in a better place to notice the light in your life. And this obsession that I had, finding that light, capturing it, it sort of, that's where I was in my life. And so I want to share with you one of the realizations that I had that helped me climb out of this really difficult space. I shared with you earlier how angry I was at God, And the realization that I had, because, I was honest with God, I told him I'm angry, and I'm not a very spiritual person, but, I got this almost like a response from God, And the response was that I had 13 good years of marriage. I had a fulfilling sex life, I'm going to say that at church because Andrew says it all the time anyway, so. But let's be real, there are many people that don't even have that in their life, Many people, the most fulfilling of a sex life they've had is an addiction with porn, and that is the real state of the world. I had more than that. And I have 3 wonderful children. And some people don't have that either, and some people may never get to experience that. But this is the response I got. I was given all of these things, And it was in that moment of realizing it that I felt so entitled, for my anger. And somehow I was able to let go of it all because of this realization. There's this I'll leave it at that. I was able to let go of that anger. And so I want to share that with you. Remember to be grateful. All right, so we've got this quote. I actually stole this from one of Mike's slides, but here we go. Therefore, be grateful for your trials. They come from the love of God to separate us from Satan. If you endure and overcome them, a spring-like period of new blessing will follow. And eventually I did experience this in my own life, a new spring-like period that followed. And this idea of God giving us trials to separate us from Satan, I think at the very least you could say we have these trials in our life and we have the opportunity to grow and to remove ourselves from what is evil through these trials. And again, we talked about Jesus being a person that had a difficult life earlier. And the same is true for Reverend Moon. I mean, if you're not familiar with Reverend Moon, he's the founder of this church, Unification Church. And he's a person, we've got his picture up here. He's a person that has been through an incredible amount of hardship in his life. And, I won't go through all of it now, but I encourage you to look into it. He was born in North Korea. He lost his homeland. North Korea is not a free country now. And he was forced to flee his homeland of North Korea. Same with his wife, actually. His wife was born in North Korea, too. He was forced to flee his homeland several times because of the persecution that he received there, just for wanting to believe in God and wanting to teach about it. He spent years in a concentration camp, Hungnam prison in North Korea, for those very same reasons. He arrived to South Korea when he left North Korea for the last time as a refugee. And essentially, I like to tell the kids that, this person that founded our church was essentially homeless at one point, and that is the truth of the matter. In 1951, he arrived in Busan, South Korea, as a homeless refugee and had to start from there. Think about where you start in your life, Can you imagine starting homeless, and having to build up from there? The day before, and 3 years after he arrived there, he founded the church. In just 3 years, he went from being homeless to founding this church. The day before his wedding in 1960, he was taken in by the police for interrogation, and was interrogated until 11 p.m. that night, the day before his wedding in 1960. And that was the type of persecution that he received, even when he arrived in South Korea. And then even when he came to the U.S. later, he was imprisoned here in the U.S. for a year. He was imprisoned in the U.S. for owing $7,000 in taxes. That's not a lot. And you certainly don't typically get imprisoned for a year for owing only $7,000 of taxes. But there we go. That's his life. And, and again, he's talking us about overcoming adversity as a person that transcended adversity himself in his own life. All right. So I want to close here. We've talked about my adversity in my life. We've talked about adversity in your own life. And we've read this quote from True Father that can make it seem like adversity automatically makes you a better person, right? But really, I don't think it's quite that simple, right? And so I've presented this slide for you here. This is a crossroads. And so I'd like to suggest to you that adversity that we all experience is really a crossroads in our life. It presents us with a choice, right? And it's a really important choice that we have to make, right? We all know this character who wallows in self-pity. He's dealt with adversity in his life, and his question is, why me? And this type of person is mired in self-pity. We'd use words to describe them like angry, resentful, jaded, stuck in their life circumstances, unable to progress, right? And this is essentially what adversity has done to them in their life. This is the situation that adversity has created for them in their life. We all know this type of person, right? Yet we also know a different type of person, right? And this other type of person, there's this character of the hardened veteran, right? Who's tough as nails. And like specifically like the special forces, like the Marine Corps, they are in the military, they are the ones that go through the most challenge, the most adversity, the most rigorous training. And we therefore conclude that because they've been through the most hardship, the most difficult training, that they are the most elite of their kind, the ones best suited to do their job. Right? And this is entirely different from the character that we saw before. These are the people that we want to fight for us in times that are hard, right? Precisely because they've been through the training that has made them tough and made them strong. And so done in the right way, I would say that adversity can lead to growth too, right? But it can lead both ways. And ultimately that choice is your choice to make. And you have to make that choice. So I'd like to leave you with these closing notes. Essentially a call to action, right? We've all been through hardship, right? So the first thing I'd call you to do is to let go of your anger, really. I had to find a place where I could let go of my own anger. And it wasn't until I could do that, let go of my own anger with God, that I could start to move forward. Focus on your blessings in life, right? I had to do that. I had to find what I was grateful for, right? Despite what was going on around me, maybe you want your marriage to last forever, but having 13 years of marriage is better than having none at all, And so remember to focus on your blessings and what God has given you. Remember that it may take longer than a day to get through your hardship. This is something that I came to learn, but when you go through hardship, your sadness can really instruct you on what you need to change in your life. Talk to that sadness. Ask yourself what you're sad about. And go from there to figure out what you need to change in your life. And then finally, don't stop moving forward. All right. And then the last thing I'd like to share, and this is what I had to learn, is that God is our parent. So we've come from being angry at God. I refuse to believe in a God that can allow such evil to happen in this world. Back to being God as a parent, right? And one of the things that I really like about this church is that we don't just say God is our parent. We really believe that God is our parent, And it's the sense that God is not our judge. He's not there to damn you to hell as soon as you make a mistake, or if you don't jump through the right hoops of faith, He's there as a parent. And just like I can't guarantee that the lives of my own kids will be free of adversity, God can't guarantee that our life will be free of adversity. But I think God can always guarantee that He can walk by your side. All right. Well, thank you all for listening. That's my message. All right, I got the prayer gesture from Pastor Mike, so I'm going to close our prayer. Thank you, Heavenly Father, that we can be gathered here this Sunday, as we often are, and that we can be gathered here under you. And life does have a lot of challenges, and many of us have been through real hardship in our lives, Heavenly Father, and maybe are even in difficult places now. But today we remember that hardship doesn't necessarily mean that you're not there, and that we still have blessings in our lives, Heavenly Father. So as I said, I pray that you can walk by the sides of all the people here in this congregation today, Heavenly Father. Walk by their sides in life, and that they can feel your presence in their lives. I pray this simple request. I pray these things in our names gathered here today. Amen and Achu.